Hey guys, Pocket here with the next Maple tip. This will be a lengthier one and we'll focus on familiars. Which ones to get, where to get them, what they do, how to use them, and so on and so forth. Starting off with the basics, to get to your familiars you can either double click on your Crusader Codex here and to reach the screen, or you can simply key your monster book. It appears here, put it on a hotkey, you can press it to open your codex directly. So when you kill a mob for the first time, if it is in the codex, it can drop a codex card. This is different from the actual familiar card, which is a use item. The codex card, once you pick it up, it goes directly into your codex and it goes toward completing these sets. I won't go too much into this today. Essentially each set has a point value, a score value, which you can see here. And once you complete a set, certain sets have set effects. Most recommended, of course, is Lifra, which you've probably heard of, as it gives 30% IED. But the more sets you have, the more points you get, and then at certain breakpoints, your codex will also receive like a level up. So you can see mine has +7 because of the number of points I have. So now you know how to get to your codex, and to summon them you simply double click and they will be summoned. As you can see, they have these orbs on their heads, which is their vitality. It seems like the higher level the familiar is, generally it'll last longer than a lower level one. It is tied to the number of times they attack. So each familiar has a set amount of vitality, and each time it attacks it drains a little bit of that. Once it runs out, it disappears and it'll go on cooldown until it restores its vitality over time. That being said, there's a few ways to restore familiar vitality. The easiest way is to change channels or to enter a cash shop. This will reset your familiar's vitality back to full, and you can continue farming. When you get a familiar and use it for the very first time, you'll have an opportunity to name it. So the name is pretty important. Let's do this. Once you name a familiar and once you save a familiar, currently there's no way to rename it and there's no way to remove it. So I have some here that I kind of regret using. I used it when I was newer to the game and they're just here forever. So you'll notice as you add more familiars, it's going to start to kind of clog up your window. To have easy access to your farming or healing familiars, I just like to try to keep as few as possible on my main. Some people like to collect them, and that's fine. And there's a search function and there's different rarities which you can sort by. But for simplicity, I prefer to keep less. So each familiar can be quote-unquote leveled up by 3 times. Each time you get a card, or you use a card, after the initial naming and entry into your codex, the second and third card will increase their vitality. The vitality seems to increase exponentially as you add more. 1 orb may last, for any familiar, may last like 10 minutes, 2 orbs may increase it to like 40-minute duration, and then 3 could be like up to an hour. So, you know, the more the better, and depending on what you're using the familiar for, you may not need more than 1, but generally the more the better. It's also important to know about certain dead zones where familiars will be desummoned automatically. Places like Ardent Mill if you're going for an MVP, or if you're entering the cash shop after you've cleared a few bosses and you want to sell the crystals, these places will automatically desummon your familiars. It's important to know because if you've been farming and you go for an MVP, or if you've been bossing and you want to sell your crystals in between bosses, once you enter here, if your familiar is not full vitality, when it gets desummoned, you can't summon it again immediately until it naturally regenerates its vitality back to full. So generally, to get around this, you want to enter Cash Shop or change channels to fully restore your familiar before entering these dead zones. This includes some places like Choo Choo PQ. You'll notice if you enter that, your summon will be desummoned on entry. You can actually resummon it inside and it'll just disappear again. Familiar cards can also be stored into your storage on reboot. What this means is that you can farm it on a character like your Kana, who can boost the spawn rate with Kishin, and then you can save familiars for future mules and other characters if you want to. So that's interesting to note, as you don't have to farm them on a slower or worse mobber, and you can just start saving up if you choose to. So hopping right in, I'm going to talk about a few familiars today that I find especially useful and kind of go over what they do and where to find them. The first one is going to be the Junior Boogie. It is typically what everyone starts with. So the level 15 familiar. The level is important because you can only use a familiar at the same level or below you. So if you're level 10, you can't use a higher level familiar. It wouldn't add to your codex. So the Boogie is the most commonly used by newer players or lower levels because it restores your MP. It's quite nice because you may be short on money at the beginning, or certain skills will eat a large part of your pool as you have a small amount of mana to work with. This familiar is fairly common. You can just go to a map that you can see on the world map. They usually go here, South Rocky Mountain in Parion, and you can just go around killing some, and it seems to be the lower level they are, the more common they are. Just kill a few and it shouldn't take too long. So once again, you can just pick them up. These are used items. If it's the first time you kill the mob, you might see a larger card, and that would be the set card. And those again go toward sets. So the actual familiar cards are use item. So that's the Boogie. Here's the map. The next familiar people usually transition to is the Big Spider, and that's in Edelstein. They're level 82, and usually you go to Shaft 2 in the mines. There's someone farming diligently. So yeah, these guys are here. This is important to get because it's going to be your cheapest and easiest way to get drop rate. It increases both the item and Meso drop rate by, I think it was 60%. The Meso drop rate refers more so to the bag itself dropping and not the amount inside. So it's easiest to just bring a Kana here and Kishin and try to farm them. As soon as you get one, start using it. That way you increase your drop rate and increases the speed that you get the next ones. So you can farm 3 and then keep farming to save for future mules and characters. The drop rate effect of this is actually the same as a drop coupon, so it doesn't stack with like Lucky Winters or double drop. So it does not stack. You want to use one or the other. The Big Spider is really nice because it's basically an on-demand drop coupon that is basically forever. You don't have to use a use item which you may be limited on, and you just bring it around with you. Next similar mob is the Mutant Pig Familiar. It's a much higher level, 168. This one is from future Hennessy's, or the Hennessy's ruins. I usually farm them here at Dreamy Forest Trail. These guys hit pretty hard, and this card is pretty rare. I wouldn't really recommend necessarily hunting for it specifically. It's not earlier in the game, there's really no reason to. The drop Meso rate is identical to Big Spider. The benefits are that it generally lasts a little longer, it's a higher level, the damage is negligible, it really doesn't scale at all. It seems to punch mobs around, whereas a spider kind of poisons and slows them. So these passive effects don't really have a big impact on the gameplay. It's just more for having an alternative, or oh, looks kind of cool, I guess. It's nice to have a double of a familiar that does the same thing in case you don't have the luxury of entering cash shop, or if you don't want to change channels, if you just want to stay on your map and keep training. What you can do is, hang on a rope, get somewhere safe. Actually, I'm not sure if ropes work. No. If you get to a safe platform, you can switch familiars. So let's say your spider is low after you farm for like an hour or so. You have the pig, and you don't really want to leave your map because you're alone. So all you have to do is get to a safe spot and summon your alternative. So I just summon my pig, then just keep training, keep farming. If the pig gets low, after enough time, you can just swap back again. So this holds true for Leprechaun and Eye of Time, or a certain healing familiar as well. But we'll go into those a little bit later. So for reboot, drop rate rise. Drop rate rise. It's just spider and pig. These are the item drop rate familiars for reboot. There might be some super rare boss ones that might drop, but for all effective purposes, these are the two you may want to go for. Big spider, highly recommend. Mutant pig, not so much, but it's there if you want to. Next is a more, I guess what most people will be familiar with, which would be a Leprechaun. So the best map for this, I usually like to go to NLC. Well, they're from NLC. Let's type NLC. Hop on over. I'm going to go to Phantom Forest for these guys. And again, it's recommended that you farm pretty much every familiar on a Kana, or if you have a Kana meal, to bring with you and farm them with drop rate, as they are affected by drop rate. So here, I think the best map was the map before the jump quest. So an easy way to get here is to double click here, and here is the first map of the jump quest, called Valley of Heroes. So once you click that, you just kind of follow the little map indicator thing. It'll actually take you right there through the maze. This doesn't work for every single map in the Phantom Forest, as I've been informed. Some will take you to a portal teleporter and assume that you've done the quest to use those portals. So this is the map before the jump quest. It's a jump quest. Obviously you're not here to do this, but the map before the jump quest has the map you want to get to for farming these familiars. It should be on the signpost. You can't quite see it right now. This wooden signpost. Several of these Phantom Forest maps have these signposts. Should take you to, I believe it's Creeping Dead. Evil Dead, sorry. And here, there's these two spawns of leprechauns right next to each other. So generally we'll be farming on a Kana, you just put down Kishin here, it'll continue to kill these two, and you can just chill over here whacking any phantoms that come out. And there's one over here as well. So just farm them slowly. I've heard it can take a little time to farm these, but it shouldn't be too bad. So what the Leprechaun does is increase your Meso drop rate by 100%. Again, this is referring to the actual Meso bag itself and not the amount contained inside. So let's say a base bag drops, 100 Mesos. It's not going to make that to 200% Mesos. What's going to do is guarantee that that bag will drop at all. This is especially useful in Malaysia Bye Bye Station for Meso farming. Those mobs can actually drop up to 2 bags, and with the Leprechaun, it'll guarantee both bags. It's important to note that the drop rate provided by the Leprechaun and also the Eye of Time is the same as the drop rate line on your gear, but only for Mesos. So item drop rate will also increase the chance of the Meso bag to drop, along with other items. So Leprechaun's level 96, go to that map, farm mainly for bye-bye station. There's also uses outside of bye-bye as well. Eye of Time is the same as Leprechaun in its effect. It's also 100% Meso drop rate. However, it lasts longer. Number one, it's higher level, it attacks slower, and as we mentioned before, familiars drain their vitality through each attack. So because it's higher level, has a bigger pool, and because it attacks slower, it's going to last longer. If you're just Meso farming in the current day and age, in bye-bye station, you have to go, suicide your character so often that you can generally refresh your Leprechaun before it runs out by entering cash shop. It used to be a lot more useful to get this because you could level or farm in bye-bye station at a high level. That's no longer the case. So it's just at this point it's more of a convenience, and again, similar to Spider and Pig, if you have both and you're using it, you could technically switch between them. I found that previously when I Meso farmed, I could just switch between them. When the Leprechaun ran out of vitality, I could just switch to the Eye of Time. When the Eye of Time ran out, I could switch to this, and I could just bounce between them without ever leaving my map at all. The map I usually go to for Eye of Times, I just go to Memory Lane 1. Seems to work the best for me. There's no map with only Eye of Times, so I'm just gonna have to pick them out, and they're pretty uncommon and almost rare, I would say. If Leprechauns are uncommon, I would say Eye of Time is rare, so it could take a long time to farm them too. So generally not really recommended, but again, it's there if you want it. Some people have noted that they make very similar rates at bye-bye station with the Spider compared to Leprechaun. Other people say they make more with the Leprechaun, so I'm not really sure exactly what the breakpoint is for how much drop rate will always guarantee a Meso bag. So again, Spider should be 60%, and then a Leprechaun, Eye of Time should be 100%. So for the purposes of farming Arcane River, I generally like to have at least 40% drop rate, 20 to 40%, and then I'm comfortable with using the Spider to make sure I get enough item drop rate for the bag to drop guaranteed. So that covers the drop rate familiars for reboot. There's a few more for non-reboot. I believe the Wolf Underling is 100% drop rate, so it counts as like a double drop coupon. We don't have that here, and there's, I think the Toad Boss one is the same. That's pretty rare as well. So the next more utility focused familiars would be healing. There's a couple that you may seen around. The most famous is usually Mutant Snail. We'll just go through by level. So your entry healing familiar, well, we already covered it, but it's a Junior Boogie for mana only. The next one, usually the easiest to get, is Platoon Chronos. This restores 10% HP and MP for everyone in your party at each 10 seconds. This is from Ludus Lake, and I usually grab them from this map, Path of Time 1. This is a bit uncommon, but it's not too bad. So bring your Kishin here and try to farm him with drop rate, and you should be able to get him pretty quick. Next level up, I actually don't have one. You can actually get a red Kentaurus. I tried to farm it for a little while. They seem to be pretty rare almost. It should heal 15% HP only for your party. So this is an option. I don't really recommend it. They seem to be pretty rare, and it's HP only. Again, Platoon Chronos, there's a downside that is relatively low level, so it drains faster during the duration of a boss fight. So the general cream of the crop is the big snail. Comes also from Hennessy's Ruins. Usually try to farm them here at the marketplace. Again, ideally with a Kishin. These are also pretty rare. It can take a while to get them, but they do boost, or they do heal your entire party by 15% HP and MP every 10 seconds. So it's quite good to have when you have a full party of everyone using these familiars. As you can imagine, your healing is very large. It's important to note that as of currently, the current patch, healing familiars do go through healing blocks. So like Will Phase 2 or Varus Hilla, it will bypass potion locks, it will bypass potion cooldowns. It's not a potion, but it just heals you passively all the time. I think the only place I can think of that the party familiars don't heal through is like Dojo. So Mutant Snail, pretty rare, but pretty good. This is what I usually recommend to get if you're planning on like, in-game bossing. Okay, next we have Castle Golem. There's a few interesting things about this, but this one is, I would say, just about as rare, or if not a little bit more rare than the Snail. The most annoying, there's a few annoying things about this familiar. Number one, you have to do the questline, Lion King Castle questline, just to get to this map. That's the first most annoying part. The second annoying part is that the spawn, the boost is not great even with Kishin. You can see right now it looks like there's a lot of mobs, but once you Kishin this map, they spawn kind of slowly. There's just not that many mobs you can kill. So it takes a while to get these. These are they're also higher in rarity. I found that the rarity doesn't really speak too much to how rare a familiar is. There's some like less rare ones that I've had a lot of trouble trying to get. So interesting about this familiar, it's the same healing as a Snail, 15% HP MP. However, it heals map wide. I don't know if there's a limit, but whereas a Snail will heal the party members specifically in your party, the Castle Golem heals everyone on the same map. So as you can imagine, this leads to a few interesting utility uses. So personally for me, when I'm farming, Meso farming or training, because I'm using my Kishin Mule, for my Kana, my Kishin Kana, I farmed a 3-orb Castle Golem. So while my Kana is providing Kishin and boosting the spawn rate, it also has the Castle Golem out. And because it's out and I don't need to be partied with it, it's healing me because I'm on the same map as my Kana. It's pretty useful. I can save a lot of potions, and my mana and HP are always usually up because of that. Previously, before, they penalized you for being in a party at all times and split your Meso by the number of party members, which I cover actually in a different Maple Tip video. I used to always be partied with my Holy Symbol Mule, my Bishop. And these party familiars have another interesting effect as well, in that they will heal you regardless of where you are. I think as long as you're on the same channel. Because my Bishop Mule used to be parked at like Easy Cygnus for easy access. It'd just sit here, I'd pop in while in the same party, grab Holy Symbol, pop out, but I'd stay in the same party. And even though I'm on a different map, as long as I was partied with my Bishop, the Snail would heal me from that different map. It's less useful now because they've nerfed Holy Symbol, that the effect is reduced when you're away from the Bishop, and that being in the party with the Bishop will also reduce your Mesos. So you don't really want to do that anymore. But that's an interesting property that you may not have known, in that as long as you're in the same party, in the same channel, the familiar is going to continue to heal you, even though your map's apart. So Castle Golem, map wide, Snail, Chronos, Kentaurus, party wide. Some familiars only heal the player themselves. Those would include Boogie and Mr. Alli. Mr. Alli is from Mulong. It's actually pretty good healing. It is a 15% HP and MP, but it's only a personal heal. So if you're farming or something, you want to save potions, generally you could use a healing familiar. It's usually recommended to farm with a big spider though, just to up your drop rate of both mesos and items. And then another, I guess, notable familiar would be the Chief Oblivion Guardian. And this heals your party members as well as a party familiar. Should be 15% HP only every 10 seconds. So it's the same as a Kentaurus. It might be a bit higher level though. And this one is, I'd say, more uncommon to rare. You can grab them from either this map, Road to Oblivion 5 or 4. So that covers the main healers. I think the blue Kentaurus even heals MP, but generally you don't really get them. So main recommended, Platoon Chronos, Mutant Snail, maybe Castle Golem. Again, having multiple is nice because during like mid-boss fight you can get to a safe spot. You can switch between them if you're running low on one. 10% HP MP, 15%, 15%. These guys are the big ones, so lesser. This runs out of vitality faster. I'm not sure if the vitality has to do with rarity at all. I just added this today, so I generally use Mutant Snail. The next and lastly, we have some fun ones. These are appearance familiars. First we have Surgeon Eye, and you can see when you pop that out, you turn into a dark shadow. And these guys are over here in Alinea. There's a couple maps with them. I don't think it really matters which one. As they are lower level, they are semi-common. Shouldn't take too long to get them. So it turns your character completely black. It affects your cash shop items. It doesn't affect anything that's an additional effect, but it's just for fun. Don't think it affects chairs either. So Surgeon Eyes, pretty low level and turns you completely black. Next one is the Junior Wraith, a little bit higher level. So similar, but you turn into kind of a shadow, and you can kind of see your hair and your eyes as a darker shade. Those are in Kerning Subway. Over here, there's a couple maps, I think. Yeah, there's a few maps. And these are pretty common as well. So also shouldn't take you too long. More uncommon, the last one, or last type that I have is the Klock. This is actually a Star Force mob. Some turns you very red. So similar type of effect, a different shade of color. These are from down here. From Path of Time, Forgotten Path of Time 2. This is the only place for them, and it's mixed with the Dark Clocks. And this is much more rare than the first two. It is higher level and a Star Force mob. So these are just for fun, these three. There are other mobs that provide the same appearance change, but these are the easiest one to get in my experience. So yeah, those are familiars. And one last thing I wanted to talk about was something that I've heard, time and time again, is that familiars, because they're non-KMS, they don't work in Arcane River, and that's just plainly false. They definitely work. I use them all the time. People may be getting confused in that they mean that because Arcane River doesn't drop 2 Meso bags, it's not worth using them. But again, depending on your situation, it might be worth using, like even an Eye of Time or a Leprechaun. Kind of like my situation, which I talked about earlier. So I'll just do a quick little test here to kind of demonstrate. I'm currently wearing no drop rate. Just wearing my damage gear right now, so 0% drop rate. No holy symbol. The passives know nothing. So I'll just go kill some mobs, and you can see that sometimes. Let's see if I can kill one by one here. Oh, hold on. It's actually an interesting thing where if you summon a familiar, the effect could stay with you passively for the duration of the buff, even if it unsummons automatically. So I think I'm still under the drop rate effect. So in an attempt to try to get rid of it, I'm going to relog real quick. This is a nice little trick that might help you with something like Choo Choo. So for Choo Choo PQ, alright, here we go. Choo Choo PQ, when you summon a familiar, if you have a familiar summon, like a big spider, before you enter, it's going to despawn once you enter. But the drop rate effect persists. Like when you summon the familiar, you'll notice it's like 3-4 minutes. That's the drop rate buff it gives you, and then once it runs out, it'll usually refresh it automatically. So if you pop your familiar before you enter Choo Choo PQ, and then once you're inside it disappears, you actually maintain the buff even though the icon goes away. You'll notice that even if you have no drop gear, the quest items, the recipe items still drop at a high rate. And so that's a nice little tip, especially starting out when you're lacking drop rate, to pop your spider gear either outside or inside, and then even though it goes away, you still have that drop rate. So depending on how long it takes you to clear the PQ, you could just pop it before every run to make it a lot smoother. So here you can see I'm killing mobs, the same mobs I was just killing. These mobs are, within level range. You can see that some mobs don't drop anything. These mobs down here drop nothing. And this one over here didn't drop anything. The one on the left didn't drop anything. It's because I have no drop rate. No item drop rate for my gear, and no familiar. So once again, if I put out my spider, it's going to give me this buff, and then it should be close to every mob. There might be some that don't drop anything because it isn't 100%. Spider is only 60%. I haven't done any extensive testing. But there might be a doubled effect as well, because it's item and Meso. As you can see, these definitely work in Arcane River for sure, 100%, no doubt. And I commonly use them for farming. So that's the first thing I want to talk about, and the second is when to use what familiar and why. I kind of went over it earlier, but again, if you've just entered Arcane River, I think generally I'd usually advise to just use a spider most of the time. Leprechaun, Eye of Time is less common. When I'm Meso farming, some people have asked why I'm using a spider over a Eye of Time or Leprechaun on my Meso farmer. And that's mainly because I have drop gear on those farmers. So theoretically, not theoretically, actually, if you had a bye-bye farmer, for example, that had 100% Meso gear and like 80 to 100% drop rate gear, you don't need a familiar then. The familiar Meso rate is contained within the item drop rate line on gear. So these familiars are basically, Meso familiars are a crutch for when you have no drop rate or low drop rate and you want to guarantee that Meso bag. I generally use a spider or a pig to Meso farm in Arcana because number one, it acts as a drop coupon for droplets and node stones and crafting materials and spell traces. So I don't have to use like a Lucky Winter or a drop coupon. They are the drop coupon. And I'm covered on the Meso bag drop rate aspect because I have drop gear already. So if there was a familiar that only gave item drop rate and not Meso drop rate, I would be okay to use that on my Meso farmers because I have item drop rate on my gear on those characters. So that's why I use that instead of a Meso familiar. Again, I'd only use a Meso familiar if I had no or low, very low item drop rate. So yeah, that should cover most of the useful familiars for reboot, between healers to drop rate, Meso rate to appearance. Hope you found this useful. If you think I missed something, or if I did miss something, please let me know in the comments. And I'll add some links on the bottom to some sites that I found useful for learning about familiars. Thanks for watching. Bye bye.